So now with, according to Michael Gove, the new freedom or new Brexit freedom, shall we say, to go and pollute our rivers with, well, new housing projects, excellent news, guys. Excellent news. We can go and build all those houses that we never even bothered to build in the first place. This whole mess is a culmination and an excuse to try and extract some sort of Brexit freedom that doesn't even really exist, yet is going to contribute significantly more to river and environmental damage. And it's already been reported. And it's not just the water companies that are at fault here, because they are at fault. And why are they at fault? All comes back to one thing: regulations. Since day one, the government has not said it is going to replicate and replace and fund the bodies that we had when we were in the EU. So all those essentially police officers, that's the best way to describe them, these regulators that worked in those regulatory bodies, who would protect and look after and make sure that water companies, farmers in this case, and of course, house building projects aren't polluting the river and would, of course, fine them for doing that, have been stripped away. There have been no more recruitment into these offices since 2017, if you look at some of the numbers. No more increase in funding. No more nothing. It's the classic austerity move. Okay, guys, you need to do more with less. But here comes out Philip Dunne, an MP down south, who says that, this is going to be fantastic. Writing in Conservative Home, as you can see here, we can unlock the homes Britain needs while continuing to clean up our rivers. Well, let me hold on and stop you right there, Phil, old boy, because you just need to really correct the title of your article that you wrote. What it really should say is, we can unlock the home that Britain needs whilst continue to do nothing to clean up our rivers. Philip Dunne is one of the many Conservative MPs who sits on the Environmental Affairs Committee. He's done nothing really to actively help improve the state of rivers. He is a farmer by trade. And he, in this own article, even admits that farmers are a lot to do with a lot of river pollution. Now, of course, he talks about, yes, look at all those ELMs that the government has just passed, the Environmental Land Management Scheme, the very thing that farmers have complained about from day one. And of course, Phil doesn't bring that up. But even in the ELMs, if you may remember when we covered that, there were rules and stipulations that allowed farmers to use more polluting chemicals that would mean, guess what? More river pollution. And one of the big things that we have to watch out for is the continuing slide of environmental deregulation that goes on. Now, currently, housing developments, and it is dependent because Phil uses some very, very sneaky numbers here. He makes the claim that only about 1% of river pollution is down to, building houses on, by these rivers. The thing is, though, because we've had these regulations saying, hey, don't build houses so close to the rivers because they can create this big runoff that can end up polluting rivers. You haven't had the number of houses being built close to rivers that has contributed to pollution. It sort of slowed it down. But of course, you strip away these rules. Now you allow these new housing developments to be built by the river. What do you think's going to happen? Yes, that number is going to increase. You've seen a lot of people in the environmental protection bodies saying, look, yes, it's low, but it's low for a reason, because we have these regulations in place. If you take away these regulations, guess what's going to happen? You know, to quote Paul Joseph Watson, imagine my shock in a couple of years where river pollution goes up. Why? Because of these new developments. Now, Phil here says, oh, in my constituency, we need these, lower homes. We need these homes to rent. Yes, not, cheap, affordable homes that, people can buy and have their own home. No, we need homes that, people can rent them out. It's the same old conservative story. They do not want to build the type of houses that Britain needs. Instead, they have left it in the hands of developers who, through years of land banking, buying up patches of land that could have, affordable housing built upon them, instead buy up patches of land, sit on them for sometimes years at a time. I've all told you about just down the road from me, there's been such a patch of land exactly like that, sat on for years before they even bothered to start building anything on there. And now, well, those homes were not built to be, affordable, that people, anyone could afford them. No, and we've talked before about there's three types of housing. There's the cheap, sustainable, affordable homes that people can buy and are good for people to buy because it gets them on the property ladder. But no, that's not what they want to buy. What they want to build are these medium types of home that cost a lot more and they can sell for a lot more profit. That's what the private sector and these house builders continually want to do. And of course, most of the Tories want that because it encourages this rent cycle. Doesn't matter, because tell you what, all the plebs, well, they can rent those houses out. And well, if they can't afford them by themselves, well, they can afford a flatmate. They can do all sorts of stuff. This is why when we come to talking about the housing market, it's not just we can build our way out of it. That's certainly one way we need to be able to do it. And we do need to build a lot more cheap, affordable houses. And we need to force housing companies to actually build those types of houses, not the types of let outs that they've had in the past of, well, look, here's this development, but we want you to build at least 17% of these homes as, affordable housing. The housing companies would come along, ignore that completely, and then say, well, those 17% of homes were just not, just not, shall we say, affordable. This is not economical. So we're just going to turn them instead into the types of houses we want instead. And this has happened time and time and time again. What needs to happen is the government needs to give local councils more power to punish these developers and property developers if they do not build these social housing. And if they don't, well, guess what? The council should take all those homes that they've built and just gone, you promised you would build this amount of social housing. If you haven't, we're going to take those houses and sell them at a cost of a social housing. That's what I believe they should do. Now, of course, we're under a Tory government, so they're never going to do that. But at least we can hope that, certainly under the Labour government, probably not going to go that hard, but hey, that's fine. But we can hope that, housing has become a key issue. I've said this many times. We are in a housing crisis. And I will say this now. If you really look at the issue, we are sleepwalking into an absolute housing disaster. And this is because of 13 years of Tory policy to not build social housing, not to build affordable housing, because they have no interest in building that, because it doesn't bring them any money to promote that type of housing project. And not even that. Building houses along the river, well, what happens when these flood? And now insurance companies aren't going to insure these houses because there are a lot of houses out there built on floodplains that have flooded quite a few times, and people now cannot get insurance on their houses because of the flooding risk. So for Phil Dunne, or for Phil Dine, I don't know how you pronounce his second name. The Conservative MP for here. Yeah, he's a complete, absolutely fool. And to be honest, it's his own entire government's fault that the housing state is in this. And bear in mind, we've been through time and time and time again just how much this Conservative government has not built housing, because it is fine with housing, with the state of the housing crisis where it is, because it makes a lot of people a lot of money, not just in building just enough houses not to tip the balance of scale to keep, the stock at the right level, but also renting as well. And that's something that also needs to be taken to task. But do not be surprised. This is not a EU benefit that was, that they've managed to strip away. This is not a Brexit bonfire. This is being done as a very, very cynical move, in effect, to try and say, oh, look, we can build all these extra new houses. Aren't we good? They've had 13 years to try and tackle housing developers, landlords, all these other things that people have been telling them for years they need to do. But they have done nothing in those regards. And housing is something Labour really, really needs to tackle. Really needs to tackle. They really need a good policy when it comes to this. They really, really do. And it's going to be hard. It is going to be hard because you need a sensible policy that just does not just encourage house building of the types of houses that we need, of these social housing that we need for people who are low income, but we also need to start tackling renting as well. And bringing in rent controls would be a start. But of course, as always, more stuff to talk about later. But thank you very much for watching. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.